The message came at 2:47 a.m., when the house was quiet except for the ticking of the old clock my wife had insisted we keep. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, and there it was, her name, her message. "I'll explain later." My heart slowed, not raced. It was strange, but after months of growing distance, of smiles that didn't reach her eyes and late nights she couldn't explain, those 3 words felt like confirmation rather than shock. I stared at the screen for a long minute before typing back, "No need. I already understand." She read it instantly, the 2 blue ticks appearing like tiny witnesses to a moment neither of us could undo. Then she did something I'll never forget. She called me. Not a text, not a lie typed in panic, but an actual call. Her voice trembled when I answered. "Eli, please, don't hang up." I didn't. "Where are you?" I asked calmly. I'm at his place," she said, her voice breaking. "But it's not what you think." A bitter smile tugged at my lips. "You're right," I replied. "It's exactly what I think." Silence stretched for several seconds before she whispered, "I'm sorry." The thing about apologies is that they can't travel backward, they only echo forward, bouncing off what's already broken. "Come home," I said finally. "We need to talk." She hesitated, then agreed. By the time her car pulled into the driveway, dawn had started bleeding into the sky. She stepped out slowly, eyes swollen, wearing the same jacket I'd bought her last winter. For a second, I remembered why I'd loved her so deeply. It wasn't because she was perfect, but because she had once been honest. We sat in the kitchen, the air thick with everything unspoken. "Say it," I said quietly. "Say whatever truth you've been saving for later." She looked down at her hands. "It started as friendship," she said. "I didn't mean for it to happen, but I was lonely, Eli. You were always working, always somewhere else, even when you were here." I nodded. It wasn't an excuse, but it was an answer. "So, what now?" I asked. She looked up, eyes glistening. "I don't know. I just know I can't lose you." That line, the one meant to soften the blow, instead clarified everything. I stood and walked to the window, staring at the sunrise. "You already did," I said. She started to cry, and for the first time, I didn't feel responsible for her pain. I'd carried guilt like a shield for too long, telling myself I wasn't enough, that maybe if I'd been different, she'd have stayed content. But betrayal has a strange gift. It strips away illusions. I turned back to her. "I forgive you," I said. She blinked, confused. "You do?" I nodded. But forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, and it's not an invitation. It's just me choosing peace over punishment. She started to speak, but I raised a hand. "You don't need to explain anymore." I walked upstairs, packed a small bag, and left her sitting there in silence. For the next week, I stayed at a friend's cabin by the lake. No phone, no noise. The water was calm, the mornings cool, and for the first time in years, my reflection didn't look like a stranger. Each day I wrote one sentence in a notebook. Small truths, small steps. Day 1. I survived the worst conversation of my life. Day 3. Forgiveness doesn't mean weakness. Day 5. The person I needed to love first was me. On the 7th day, I finally turned my phone back on. There were dozens of missed calls and messages from her, all saying versions of the same thing. "Please come home." "I'll explain. I made a mistake." But I didn't reply. Some stories don't need a sequel. Instead, I called a realtor and listed the house. It wasn't revenge, it was renewal. By the end of the month, I'd moved into a small apartment overlooking the city. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, quiet and uncluttered. One evening, as I was unpacking, my phone buzzed again, her name lighting up the screen. I hesitated, then answered. "Eli," she said softly. "I just wanted to tell you I'm leaving town. I thought you should know." "Where to?" I asked. "Somewhere new," she said. "I hope you find peace." I smiled faintly. "I already did." There was a pause, then she whispered, "I'll never forget how calm you were that night. I thought you'd scream, or hate me. But you didn't." I thought about that for a moment. "That's the thing about love," I said. "It teaches you how to stay kind, even when you've been hurt. But it also teaches you when to walk away." She didn't reply. When the call ended, I felt something release inside me, like a knot finally untied. Months passed, seasons changed, and life found its rhythm again. I started a new job, met new people, laughed without pretending. One night, I looked up at the stars and realized that sometimes the things that break us are the very things that rebuild us. That single text, I'll explain later, had been the beginning of an ending, yes, but also the beginning of me. And though I knew I'd never forget what she did after I replied, I also knew I'd never trade that pain for ignorance. Because knowing the truth, surviving it, and still choosing peace, that was the most unforgettable thing of all.